We're truly honored and excited about the next session. Allow me to take this opportunity to briefly introduce our two speakers. Lisa Monaco was sworn in as the 39th Deputy Attorney General of the United States on 21st of April and will return to the United States Department of Justice, where she arrived as an intern 26 years ago. Ms. Monaco has an impressive record of government service spanning more than 2 decades. Among other positions at the Department of Justice, she has served as an Assistant United States Attorney, Chief of Staff at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General, and Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division. She also served as the Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. Ms. Monaco has practiced law, specializing in data security and privacy, and co-chairing her law firm's practice group in these areas. She has counseled businesses and understands the regulatory liability and other challenges facing them. Ms. Monaco will be interviewed by Gordon Correra, who's been a security correspondent for BBC News since June 2004. In that role, he covers national security issues, including counterterrorism, espionage, and cybersecurity for BBC TV, radio, and online. He was previously a foreign affairs reporter on the Today program. Gordon has been a State Department correspondent based in Washington, D.C., the U.S. affairs analyst for BBC News, and is the author of a number of books. So let's hear a legal perspective of enforcing cybersecurity.
Lisa Monaco, thank you very much for joining us at the Munich Cyber Security Forum. You're a familiar face to those of us who've covered national security from your time as a Homeland Security and Counterterrorism advisor during the Obama administration. You've returned to the Department of Justice, and I'm imagining that cybersecurity is now at the top of your list and when it comes to your in-trade. Could you give us a sense really of what your priorities are in what I think is your first week in office?
Well, thanks so much, Gordon, and it's great to be with you, and it's great to be part of this conference, to be part of this forum. It is especially timely and especially important when we look at the array of threats facing us in the cyber realm. You're quite right. I am in my first week on the job. I think we're at day 5, Gordon, and I'm just thrilled to be back at the Justice Department. It was my home for 15 years, where I learned to be a lawyer, where I learned to be a public servant. And so I'm thrilled to be back at the department and serving here again. When it comes to priorities, the Attorney General and I have been quite clear. First and foremost, we will lead the department consistent with its foundational values, going to advance civil rights and equal justice under law, and very importantly, protecting from emerging threats and threats we face in the here and now. And that, of course, means extremism in all its forms, from foreign and domestic, and critically, and top of my priority list, the cyber threat. And this is one where, Gordon, I have seen evolve over my time in government and since leaving government and coming back. It has exploded. It has become more diffuse, more sophisticated, more dangerous than ever before. I think we're at a pivot point yet again when it comes to the cyber threat. I've seen this evolve over time. Indeed, when I was the Homeland Security Advisor, I met with the president every morning on the most urgent threats facing the nation. And what I found in that is that over time, I spent more and more time in that briefing every morning talking to him about cyber threats, whether it's from nation states or criminal enterprises. And you don't need, though, a presidential briefing every morning to understand that the cyber threat has exploded. And today, as I return to the Justice Department, what I'm seeing is that we are at this pivot point. And I think what distinguishes today's threat and what I'm seeing and what I'm acutely focused on and what we will be focusing on here in the department is how malicious actors are exploiting the technology that has been such a boon to our commerce, to free speech, to the way we communicate, to the way we drive, you name it. We have over time moved all of that, everything we do from the analog to the digital space. But we didn't do it with security in mind, as this group convening today knows all too well. Well, we're at another point where new technologies and connectivity is exploding in a way that I think we really have to think about how the bad actors are exploiting it. And what we're seeing now is that technology, that innovation, the way we are using new innovation and technology, it's being used against us. And it's being used against us by nation state adversaries, by criminal enterprises. And we see it in the supply chain attack in SolarWinds. We see it in the use of ransomware. And we launched a ransomware task force just last week to really go after that particular manifestation of the cyber threat. But we need to rethink, as your title of the conference rightly points out, and really assess, are we using the most effective strategies against this kind of new evolution, this pivot point that I think we're at today in the cyber threat. And that's why, Gordon, we are launching this week, under my direction, a review of how the department is looking at exactly this set of challenges. We want to bring forth actionable recommendations in a 120-day timeframe, so there is no time to lose, on what can we be doing better, working with our partners across borders to address these threats. Things like, how is digital currency becoming a tool and something that is also exploited? What are we doing about the supply chain attacks that we're seeing? How can we address the blended threat of nation states and criminal enterprises sometimes working together to exploit our own infrastructure against us? So there is a great deal to do, and we're launching this review to make sure we are bringing all the tools we can to address it.
Let's pick up on a few of those issues in the time we've got. You mentioned ransomware there in the review. That is clearly a growing problem. I mean, there were reports, I think the Washington, D.C. Police Department got ransomware attacked in the last week. We heard reports in Germany last year, I think, of potentially a patient dying because a hospital they were due to go to was hit by a ransomware attack. Lots of issues surrounding that, which are having a real impact on people's lives. What do you think can be done about this problem, which feels like it's almost exploding in volume?
Well, it is. And I think last year was the worst year we have experienced to date when it comes to ransomware. Billions of dollars of impact on victims, from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses to governments alike at all levels, as you rightly point out. And it is not just about money. It's about mayhem, right? As you point out, when the victim is a hospital, we're talking life and death. And when a victim is a critical infrastructure holder, we are talking the main avenues of how we power our grid, how we get our water supply, you name it. So this is something that we are acutely focused on. We've launched this ransomware and digital extortion task force, because here again, what we're seeing in some of these cases is the use of ransomware, not just to extort money, but to hold hostage critical pieces of information, whether it's hospital records, whether it's proprietary technology. So I think what we need to do, and what our task force will be focused on, is how do we go after the entire ecosystem that is being used, the infrastructure that bad actors are using, the digital currency they're using as a means to perpetrate their extortion efforts, you name it. We have to take a holistic look at it.
So that means going after that infrastructure, the support infrastructure, if you like, a slightly more, less just playing defense, but trying to go on the offense a bit more about those who are behind these acts. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And that's why we're launching this review this week, because ransomware is one manifestation, which we are now seeing in the headlines. But more broadly, what else? What is the next ransomware that we're going to have to deal with? What is the next exploitation by bad actors of other technologies, whether it's AI, again, digital currency issues? What is the next iteration of the supply chain attack that we've seen? So, of course, the Justice Department has tools that it can use, and we are working every day with our partners to disrupt, to deter, and to hold accountable malicious cyber actors using these and exploiting these technologies, but we have got to move at the same speed that our adversaries are.
It was interesting, I think in the last week or so, the Department of Justice authorized the FBI to go after some of the malicious software which had been installed on computers, quite a kind of forward-leaning move. Is that the kind of thing we can expect to see more of?
Absolutely. We need to be working, again, with our partners overseas. We have done some of the best work working with our partners in Europe, working with the private sector to go after that infrastructure. You, of course, know, and the folks attending this conference know, the Emodnet bot takedown was a great example of partnership going after the exploitation of infrastructure by malicious actors, sharing more information with the private sector, working closely with the private sector, who, of course, the victims on the front lines of these attacks. So we have got to get innovative and aggressive, and we have to work collaboratively and cooperatively with our partners and with the private sector if we are going to keep pace with what the malicious actors are doing.
We talked about the rise in ransomware. There also seems to have been a more aggressive posture from some nation states. Clearly, Russia with the SolarWinds attack, also the Microsoft Exchange incident, which was linked to actors in China. In the past, the Department of Justice has been quite forward-leaning in indicting individuals sometimes, and has done that going back, I think to Chinese actors back during the Obama administration. Do you feel that that is working as a tactic? Does it serve to deter them? What else can be done to deter, or is it just a question of disrupting some of these activities by nation states?
We've got to do both, Gordon. And I am a proponent of taking that approach. You point out the work the Justice Department did against Chinese cyber actors. That's work that I began when I was the head of the National Security Division the last time I was in the department. And we honed our focus. We saw nation states exploiting the cyber realm to do what I call geopolitical one-upsmanship. They are going after our intellectual property. They're going after research and development, and yes, going after state secrets and doing traditional espionage. But we've got to focus on the use that nation states, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, are making of these tools. And certainly the criminal justice process, identifying, calling out, and holding to account those actors is one tool. The use of sanctions, as you have seen, working with partners is another tool. Exposing, I think very important to expose this activity, to marginalize it to the extent we can, and then work with partners to deter and disrupt it.
Lisa Monaco, I'm afraid we're out of time, but it's been great to hear from you in your first week about those priorities, about the review, about the focus on ransomware and going after the infrastructure. Thank you very much for joining us here.
Thanks so much for having me.